A little over 3 months ago, I released a video where I went over the entire history of my Celeste map creations. I created a map specifically called Glitchtophen, and there's a lot of history behind why it took 2 years for me to make it and what it was all about, and I finally published it to Game Banana for all to enjoy. It went not so well, with some critical, feedback immediately about how I made it and what it was used by, because originally it wasn't for the public. Point is, when I released it, I never expected anyone to do anything close to what you see today. Today, I am going over a TAS, a tool-assisted speedrun, where someone uses an external program to input buttons that play the video game frame by frame, and they did it for my map, something I created. Now this TAS, this tool-assisted speedrun, was done by someone named Kelpie. They are an absolute legend, and I hold a lot of respect for anyone who does anything like this, especially when it's for something I created. In general, this video is going to be a little bit different because it is just going to be me talking and discussing everything around it. Thank you so much, and if you enjoy, please like and subscribe. I think this is one of the kindest things anyone's ever really done for me, and it's not even like they did it for me, they just did it because they enjoyed doing it. There's a lot going on here and it's like 15 minutes long, but this is a TAS of the map I made. And I made this map and I made a video about it if you're really curious about like the history and everything. I never expected anyone to do this because this requires so much time and effort. So we're just gonna get it started. They decided to also get every single berry, which I feel like is such an unnecessary step that they didn't have to do, and yet they did just for the sake of doing it. Now I do have a an input display, but because every frame they're doing something, it's gonna be very quick. You know, it's very basic. J jump, X dash, I guess. I don't really know how the X plays in. That might just be the actual button, but in general you can kind of determine what it is. This is crazy already. They are zooming through this. Wow, see, they're already blasting through. Even though it's very reminiscent of the first, reflection areas, I added like 2 levels and everything's been shifted around and changed. And it's very interesting to see how they go about doing certain things, because a lot of this and a lot of when I was creating this, I made sure to make it as speedrunnable as you could make it, if that makes sense. So when I was making the entire map, one of the things that I wanted to prioritize was making sure that if someone wanted to do a full clear of the map while still speedrunning it, that there were tons of options to do so. What they're doing currently is the route that I generally take when I did those speedruns. Almost to a T, it's just, so much cleaner. Oh man, and it's so cool to see them use stuff like this, where you're off to the side, be utilized, because when I was first making the map, that was one of the things that I had left in. Originally it was for an Easter egg, and it's so cool to see him go through spikes and shit. But originally it was for an Easter egg where you would flip upside down, and like there was a whole bunch of other ways to do certain stuff. So it's just a remnant, like I left it in just to leave it in, and they actually utilized it, which I think is really cool. It's just so fast. Now they're getting the 5 mini berries, so the pathing is kind of odd. I don't know if it would 100% be faster, or if it's just necessarily that's the path that they end up taking. But like this here, there's about 4 different ways you can do this. Now when you do a full clear run, it's best to do it while remaining upside down. You go down and get the key after you get the first berry. In order to remain upside down, you get this berry, and then you backtrack by selecting the Traptor Select menu. That is what allows you to get this berry without having to do what they just did, which was jelly smuggling, I guess. Still, it looks a lot cool with the jelly smuggling. And then if you do like an any % without, getting this berry and everything, you can bypass the next 4 levels by going over a trigger, which is something I left in if someone wanted to do an any %. Because they're going for all red berries, this is definitely going to be a lot slower than if you were to do it any %. Like right there, those 2 gaps I didn't mean to leave that in, but it happened to work out where they could go through that. I just think it's cool. I mean, I'm sure with TAS he could have, but it's just so cool. I don't have the patience to do a TAS. I couldn't. There is so much time that you have to put into it just to get it to function, because every single frame you have to decide and figure out what the best route would be, what's the quickest way to do it, and also the crap. I could not do that. That is so much patience. Oh my god, the squishalin is real. That is crazy. Just look at the inputs on the left, like, holy cow. Now in the any percent run, or no, sorry, not any percent run, in the non-TAS version of that, you would just go to the left to trigger it, and then you could get both berries free. But it is, I guess, technically faster not to do it that way, if you just go forward and then back. That's why they did the whole spamming thing, which is really interesting. Now, I made, you know, every level, and there was a lot of changes. I went through a lot of them, so I would almost be curious to see if they'd want me to do a, you know, release it. That's so cool. Just going through the spikes there. Release a version of a lot of the old levels and stuff, and keep a lot of the changes that I did make unaltered, because then I'm wondering what. Interesting. Didn't they already get a key? I swear they already got a key at the beginning. Was that not necessary? Could that be cut out and it's just totally fine? That's kind of funny. Maybe I just missed where it was used, but anyway, yeah, I'd be curious to see if they'd want me to do that, because there's a lot of changes that were made in just about every level before I was actually officially ready to push it out. And I made a lot of updates to polish it up, even though after I released it. There's a lot of controversy with that at the beginning. Really cool. Kind of a shame you don't get to hear like the music or anything, you know, it's too quick. I couldn't even tell you what they just did there. Not really. I can give you like a guess, but dude, it's just so fast. Now, technically speaking, they could have went to the left there, and it would have been an instant teleport instead of to the right, but overall, I mean, I'm not going to try to point out like every flaw or, you know, problem with the task, because it's pretty damn close to like the best routing and the best way to do a lot of the things, and it took them so long to do it because of course it did. This is, I mean, insane. And we're only 7 minutes into it out of like the 18 or whatever, because it's a long chapter. I mean, it's close to 100 levels, I think. I mean, I really put my all into it to make sure it was as long as possible, and my style when making things is to make it as varied, you know, varietal over pure quality, which isn't always the best thing. You know, especially in like my YouTube videos and stuff, you may have noticed that there are some videos that are lower quality in order to continue pushing them out. But I have been getting more consistent with it and getting better at it, and I have started making another Celeste like mega chapter compilation for like a bunch of friends and everything. And I'm not prioritizing the same way, you know, I'm trying to make sure each level is consistent and the quality is really high while being short overall, so the expectations and everything gets lower. That's why I'm starting to make videos that are around the 20 to 40 minute mark rather than over an hour, because over an hour is fine, but it's a little long, I feel like. And even this video, for instance, of me just kind of talking while someone does a task, I'm doing it because I want to showcase the task. I think it's one of the coolest things, and every single level I could point out something that they're doing, but ultimately I don't think I'd even have the time to do that. I'm doing it because I want to showcase the task. They put so much time, effort, and energy into it. I just, with Silksong and everything else coming out, I haven't had the time to be able to do that for them, because honestly, they deserve it. This is a lot of respect, and I am honored that they would do it for my map of all things, because that's just really cool to me. The Celeste community is great when they're not, you know, the Celeste community. And I think the concepts and stuff that I used were really good for this sort of thing because it's, like I said, it's so varied and varietal. I think it makes for a fun chapter when you're going through it. Each checkpoint feels like a totally different thing, and that's what I wanted it to feel like. The pause buffering in order to clip through a third of the spikes is such a weird bug. It's obviously slower, but I think it's really cool that, again, there's just certain ones that work out where they can do that. I think it's really cool. And then this is actually, so I added this berry, it's the K berry, because Kelpie, the person who made this TAS and everything, actually found out that you could go up there when there were spikes and everything, and it would push you back to the previous room and kind of fuck things up. So in a later update, when I patched that out, instead of patching it fully out, I now left it open, as you see there, and added a secret berry for them. I called it the K berry and everything. Again, as a nod, just like, you know, thank you for playing my map and showing me things and whatnot. I think it's really cool, and honestly, I respect it. The way I do things is always going to be very different from how a lot of other people do it, and that's the uniqueness of it. Like, this map is extremely unique. I'm not gonna pretend like it's not. But the reasons it's unique, it has nothing to do with the fact that I think it's better. I think it is definitely worse than a lot of other maps, just because of how it's made, how it's done, the level design and everything is very wacky and different, but that's also what makes it different. That's what makes it more unique, is because the way I do things is not how other people would. Interesting that going around that little block was faster. That's really interesting. And of course I have some dashless sections here, so it's kind of cool to see them do that quick. Now I have photosensitivity off, just so when I teleport and stuff, it's not the gradient. Or photosensitivity on, I guess, not off, but very cool. See, now they're smuggling the key from way earlier, which is the key you're actually supposed to use to get this berry here. So I'm not really sure why they went for the key at the very beginning. I don't know if they could have actually skipped that or not, but it's kind of cool. Most of the skips they do here are all intended. Like, if you go to the left on this screen, you teleport into her rather than away from her. On the previous screen, there's, you know, enough of a gap where you can just jump on it, or, you know, do that little reverse wave dash or whatever you want to call it, in order to bypass the whole level. Same thing. Those are all intended skips. There's a lot of them, especially in the later levels, especially this one, because I knew this one was, like, the whole battling section in general isn't the most fun to go through when you're trying to fast, so you can skip most of them, as you can see here. They're just jumping off into the void, and that's intentional. I left a lot of the triggers open and everything. And the ones I did, and I felt were just fun gameplay-wise, so. It's crazy. They're already close to the end. Albeit, you know, we're almost 15 minutes into this now. It's really cool. And this is it. We're already here. I haven't been paying too much attention to the input displayer, but holy crap, every frame is just like... I'm still very proud of this map. I still think it's one of my best and most interesting things I've, you know, pushed myself to complete. Oh, this is probably a nightmare. You can't go past the lava or void juice. So cool. And I know that releasing like this video and stuff, especially with my channel, you know, I did the same sort of things. I know what isn't gonna do well and what is gonna do well. Sometimes I get lucky and the things I think are not gonna do well do actually do well. But in general, I have a good idea as to what's going to do better than other things. And you may have noticed in the last couple months especially that I had specifically been releasing videos that I knew weren't going to perform very well, because if you're actually watching my content, you know that those are the actual ones I enjoy. And it's not that I don't enjoy all of them. I do enjoy all of them, especially like Silksong. I've been loving Silksong so much. And Rain World, same thing. I've always loved Rain World. I love making content for that game. But, you know, I just like doing different things just so it's there, because I think they're more interesting concepts than if I just kept to the same format, same formula. This is one of those videos. And I'm showing off something that someone spent months making. Something someone made because they loved my map enough to decide to do so. I think that's just the coolest thing. It's not like they get a whole lot of recognition for it. It's not like they get much out of it other than the respect from the person who made it. Or from, you know, a couple of individuals. They just did it for the enjoyment of doing it. Same reason I do the things I do. But I love it. I think it's the coolest thing. So there we go. 1510, all red berries on my map. There's definitely some optimizations, but it is really cool. I do want to go through and showcase some of the any percent that you could have done. If you weren't going for all the berries, there's a lot of things that you could skip. I still hate this end screen. I wish I changed it when I got around to it, but I never did. Now, it only counts 17 just because 2 of them were collected at the beginning. When you quit out and relog, especially in the debug mode, it doesn't count it. That's a totally different issue. They did collect them. They just don't appear here because, like I said, it's not an actual save file. It's still in the debug menu. But yeah, if you go to here, right here, if you go to the right, that's what, you know, triggers the next scene. But if you smuggle it up, you get a little flag, and then you could just bypass the next, like, 6 levels. Unless you die, I think, and then it brings you back. But yeah, you can just skip all of that. So a lot of the stuff they did there, you can bypass. They could easily get under, I think, 10 minutes if they were to actually confine to some of the, you know, some of the boundaries or some of the skips that are actually there instead of the boundaries of going for all the red berries. But they actually got all the red berries, including the cassette, which I think is much cooler, and I respect it a lot more. But yeah, this is just going to be a different video. I just really wanted to showcase it and talk about it because I think it's so cool. I don't have many words for it other than it's really cool. I worked very, very hard to make this map, and I love that it got, I think, like 400 downloads or something, because to me that is 400 clicks, and even if only, you know, 30% of them played it, that's still like 50 people, give or take. Dude, that to me is incredible. 50 people played something I created. That's just cool. I would love to make a video game one of these days, and I have ideas for video games, and I have ideas that are just, they swim in my head, and I have huge, like, Trello boards and huge Google Docs and everything full of ideas that I want to try, create, do, not only for like modded Celeste, modded Rain World, mods in Minecraft. I have a lot of ideas for like actual video games, especially like Metroidvanias or a platformer. I have so many ideas and things that I would love to create that I've never really shared with anyone. And every now and then there's a medium like Celeste, a platformer, where everything's already there, and I just have this idea to make something fun, and I do it, and it turns out to be so much cooler than I thought it would be, and I love having people play it, having people experience something that I want them to experience, or I wanted them to experience. That is the coolest thing to me, and that's what makes me love doing YouTube. Seeing you guys react, comment, talk about the challenges that I've done, or even the opinions that I have, because obviously I'm still human, but I'm a very honest person, and so the opinions that I have don't resonate with everyone, and oftentimes do the quite opposite. And I love having the conversation around that, being, you know, very civil and respectful. Sometimes it's not, and those people are always going to show up, or there's always going to be people who are like, well, your channel kind of sucks, and it's like, well, whatever. I'm an indie creator. I'm an small content creator. Like I'm okay with that. And even if I was big, I wouldn't change the style of things that I do because I don't want to conform to that. That's why I'm still a small channel, is because I don't conform to the way that YouTube wants you to operate, the way that people want to watch content. I'm sorry. I'm okay with mundaneness. I'm okay with boring in order to have a payoff, in order to have something cool and interesting happen, or for the sake of humor. I'm not fond of the idea of like constant bam 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 bam, you know, like the ADHD editing and content and the format and all that, because to me, that's not necessarily entertainment as much as it's mindless consumption to not be bored, right? You should laugh, you should smile, you should get angry at the content that you watch, because then you're engaged and then you're actually enjoying what's going on. But to a certain extent, you know, if you just click on something because it immediately made you mad, you're not engaging with it. What you're doing is just hate clicking, you know, you're just getting mad at something you really shouldn't be mad at, because at the end of the day, you could just not watch it. All right, that was a little bit of a side tangent and has nothing to do with the Celeste map. But point is, I love creating things, and I'm going to continue creating things. I am definitely going to create another Celeste, like chapter-thon, collection-thon, or whatever, and I'm gonna make a video on that. Not necessarily on the making of it, like I did last time, but probably more along the lines of my friends playing it, you know. So again, like a different format to what I've been doing. Even in my very last Rainbow video, the one right before this video here, I changed my editing a little bit based off of some of the comments that I got on my Silk Song videos, and so hopefully that editing is a little bit better, and I think it's more enjoyable that way. It is definitely more snappy, but it's to visually be engaging while my audio isn't. You know, I'm still just me. I'm still just talking, making the silly jokes that I do make. I'm not a very, especially when I'm concentrated, I am not a very talkative person, and I think that's okay. You know, I'm not going to try to force myself to be, because then I start sucking, and then, you know, other things would happen. So, with that being said, that was my map, Glitchtophen, tasked tool assisted speedrun by an individual named Kelpie. They went through my entire map, every single level, frame by frame, typing in the inputs that you would do to complete it as quickly as possible. And I hold a ton of respect for that. Thank you so much, Kelpie, for making this task. I think it's one of the coolest things anyone's ever done. And thank you guys so much for watching. I got 2 more Silk Song videos coming out right after this one, so they will be at the end screen once those are completed. But until then, here's some other videos that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. I will see you guys in the next one. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Oh, and the map link will be in the description.